Hi, I'm not the gardening guy, by the way. That's after me. I don't mind gardening, but it's not me. Anyway, thank you very much for having me over, Justin. And this is a very, very obvious sounding slide, but I think it's the North Star for everything kind of that excites me about storytelling, about basically why I wake up and want to know why people do what they do. And luckily for me, the company I worked for 8 years also has this as a North Star. So yeah, I'm from Just So. We make films, short films, sometimes longer films about real people doing real things and hopefully in a non-clickbaity way. It's always good to start with an origin story because everyone likes one, and it's actually really interesting that the start for Just So was really a pub gig in the Old Blue lasted shorter to 2007. Johnny Flynn just played a gig, and the co-founders of my company put him in a cab, said, challenge you to do one song, one take, we'll get the camera rolling and have the meter going. This was before native was a thing on YouTube, right? And it just happened to be a real person having a real moment and a real connection, and really a new kind of gig was born before that horrendously talentless comedian who went to America, and or even NPR's Tiny Desk concert. There are 300 plus YouTube sessions, a little gif of the young co-founders of my company there, just pissed them off. And yeah, it became a thing. It became a thing, and this was sort of the birth of one of the, I guess, original YouTube formats, something that people wanted to come back for more. And it wasn't just audiences. Obviously, we just had a lot of chat about who builds audiences, but a lot of these people wanted to come to us. I'm going to shout out to The National, my favorite band, but others you may have heard of. Yeah, it became a thing that they want to get involved in. And I'm going to stop with the pitch there about Just So, because hopefully not here to waste your time. But ultimately, what was really interesting about all of that was that power of real connection with people and capturing in a way that brought some actual filmmaking craft to it is exactly what still leads us to do this work now, but just with other people, other commissioners. So some of the people we work with, we've just done a 48-minute documentary for Lego and F1 for 10 life-size cars. Whether it's sort of the Olympics, we've had an 8-year relationship with, again, making a series, tons of series for them before game cycles in between. But anyway, this is sort of still the North Star that guides us, which is real connection comes from real human emotion. And that's sort of how we're working with all of these brands and in-house teams to go beyond advertising into storytelling. I try to not have a completely clickbait title with this, but I thought it'd be nice to nod to it. And I guess why I wanted to talk to you guys about this, guys and gals, about this today is I'm sure you're not the only one, I'm not the only one who's been, bombarded with this question of what is in the black box for the algorithm, what is this whole algo thing? And I wanted to add the whole clickbait thing because there's actually definitely ways through where actually brain rot got used as a way of trying to hack it. But I guess it comes down to how responsible you want to be as a publisher and what you want to put out in the world. But really, I want to sort of start off by saying that obviously I'm a typical millennial. I'm off that cord-cutting generation who was really used to being able to just go and watch what I wanted to watch when I wanted to watch it. And no surprise, the generation after me are cord-nevers. This concept of, just sitting and having a schedule hit them as completely insane to them. But what's really interesting is the shift that's happened is, at least during my sort of poor student days when I didn't want to pay for any sort of subscription, I was at least choosing. What's really interesting now is about 80% of everything we consume is chosen for us. We just sort of sit back and let the algorithm do its thing. And sure, again, you've heard of people say the algorithm knows you better than probably your partner. Hopefully not the case for me. But yeah, this is sort of the big shift that's leading to a couple of things that are happening in our industry. Again, no massive surprise here, but, what this is meant generally is, the view time and where people are spending time on screens and which apps is leading to quite a few changes in the landscape, obviously. I'm not going to dwell on that too much. And obviously, we're all trying to crack this algo thing. And again, if anyone tells you that they know exactly what an algorithm is, obviously that's not true, because each platform has a black box. They're not going to exactly tell you, what exactly goes into it, what it really values or not. But ultimately, there are a couple of patterns here, as even my esteemed colleague earlier talked about, so you'll see some overlap in some of the things we're going to be talking to you about. But the first sort of thing I want to definitely address is a couple of things that, without naming names, a lot of people have come, brands, publishers, and brought these up in varying levels of, importance. I think the first one, obviously, is chasing trends. And again, no massive surprise, if you're chasing a trend, you're probably way too late to the party. You probably don't have much to say to it, and you're looking at a sort of trending hashtag and hoping that you can get in on that. And actually, that's A, really, really hard, and B, you're probably going to be very, very late anyway by the time you make something that's actually meaningful. So there's no point doing that. This is no shade on the thumbnails and titles piece, which is very, very important on YouTube. But I think it's really, really important to realize that packaging is very, very important, but you need to have a product. The packaging can bring you the first few seconds, but the real story actually happens way deeper than that, right? And if you're trying to build an audience, ultimately the packaging can only take you really, not very far. You need to have something really solid that, is worthy for them to come back every week for. Obsessing over views. Views are very, very important from discoverability, absolutely. But again, the real story isn't in that metric. And actually, it's quite obvious now that a lot of this can be rented or bought. But if you're looking for something that's more medium and long term, this is not the one thing you should be absolutely obsessing about, because this is just a way into understanding whether you got reach. Again, I'm probably repeating some of the stuff that's already been said today. And this idea of going viral, I think I really want to sort of touch on this a little bit, because we are living through a bit of an age where, rage bait was the Oxford Dictionary's word of the year last year. And I think it's slightly turning a little bit in terms of our relationship with social, our relationship with what algorithm is serving us. And I think, just as a B Corp, we would like to believe that we want to make things that unite people, that, hopefully make you feel better about your day, rather than add to the doom scrolling that, hopefully you didn't have to do on your commute here. So yeah, I mean, this is more of our own thing as a company, but ultimately, even for the algorithm, you can be very sensationalist. 1 million views once is fine, but actually true power is when you get 100K people coming every week, day in and day out. That's sort of the much more long-term place you want to be. The simplest way to think of algorithms, if you aren't doing this already, is that they're matchmakers. And what's really interesting for someone like me who's growing up, I felt like some channels got what I wanted, some channels didn't fully address some of the niches that I was into. And what's really amazing about algorithms is it can find you and it can matchmake you to the audience anywhere in the world, right? And that's great. It really means that never, like before, if you feel like you have something to say or value to a certain, can you hear me all right, by the way? Yeah, okay. To audiences, I just tend to move around here. It's actually really, really powerful. And ultimately, it's not deciding whether your channel will grow, whether your videos do well or not. But what it definitely does, it reveals. It reveals and takes out quite a few layers between you and the audience. And that's why it's really worth looking at what it's revealing about, not just what you might want to be doing, but other creators like you, other publishers like you. And really, it's not massively different from, perhaps some of the things that obviously you're used to. So in TV, obviously you had commissioners, ratings, overnight data. This is just taking a few of those layers off and making it way, way faster to get that sort of instant read on what do people care about? Did they even care about what you had to say? Did they stick around? Did they want to talk about it? And that's really sort of the biggest shift. And again, with that comes both sort of nervousness, because do you really want those numbers so quickly? But the flip side of that is you get those numbers really quickly. You can pivot. You can start, really learning quite quickly about what is it that you're trying to build. And really, I think the simplest way to think about this is you just do pitch to a commissioner, now you pitch to the audience every single time. No matter who you are, however big you are, however small you are, ultimately the power amongst a content landscape where there will be infinite supply and definitely not demand to sort of keep growing with the contents getting there, the power is in the viewer's hands, right? And it's completely shifted there. So ultimately, you're pitching to them, and if you do it well, and if you give them something of value, it'll probably work, and they'll be the ones who, they are your new commissioners, really. So again, really, really simple way to think of what algorithms ultimately care about is they follow audience behavior, right? And there's sort of three main pieces that I think are interesting to sort of take away. The first one is satisfaction over clicks, retention, watch time. These things have been obviously very, very important, but even YouTube recently sort of started serving viewers a rating. They'll show a video to people, and then the next day they'll ask you to rate it out of 5. And their own head of algorithm said that, if it's below 4, it's subpar. It probably won't get anywhere. And what's interesting about that is they're moving slightly away, or claiming to move slightly away from linear watch time. What that means is, you can find a video that might be really useful to you. You might want to watch a little bit, come back to it, and that's still satisfying your need, right? It's still a very satisfying video, or it's done its job as a video. So it's not always, at least claimed by them, about sort of sitting down and looking at it. But the point is, ultimately, yes, you want to have retention. You want people to keep watching beyond just the click, which, for the last 3 seconds you're out, it's going to downgrade you. Consistency over one-offs is another really good rule to go away, because again, you can try to sort of punt to get the one hit, but ultimately what's rewarded is you'd rather have mini hits, but very, very regularly through the weeks, through the months, and that sort of behavior that you're inculcating with your viewers is exactly what algorithms want, because ultimately they want you to keep coming back. They don't want that once in a season spectacle. They're not here to do eventized TV. They're into you're filling your time between different things you're doing, or in the living room, connected TVs, but every night, right? So anything that's kind of sparking that consistent, repeat watching is definitely something, again, that gets prioritized rather than the one-off hits. And again, I'm not the first one, I suspect the last person you'll hear from talking about this today, is ultimately it's a community that you're trying to reach, rather than passers-by. This means that, it's really an interesting time to think of what your niche is as a creator, and how can you sort of serve that community in a way they're not being served at the moment. And that's, I think, really sort of the biggest thing you can really shift from passive viewing to how can you actually co-opt your community in, helping make you money through different things, but ultimately have a sense of co-ownership. YouTube also had a recent feature about hype that comes on channels, and actually I found myself wanting to hype creators who I felt like weren't getting enough views or enough time, under the sun. And that's quite interesting, because that relationship changed between just being a passive watcher to actually wanting to be part of their journey in growing as well, particularly when you see some of the rage-baity creators out there, including some big ones who blow up Lamborghinis. So yeah, it's really, really interesting where it's no longer just a passive watcher, it is actually someone who wants to invest in the journey for their favorite creator as well. So not a huge surprise. Ultimately, it's a harder thing to do without, having to resort to this is the one hack that algorithms don't want you to know. But the point is, just be obsessed with the audience. This is always going to come back to this, right? What keeps them watching? Where do they drop off? Just, ultimately it is about that retention and satisfaction. What do they want to talk about and share ultimately, right? Like, it's not just passive viewing. What gets them riled up, or what is the next thing they want to see from you. And ultimately, what makes them come back. This isn't just a one-off, one video drop and hoping to get everything in one go. It's much more regular habit-creating viewing. And I think the good news for pretty much everyone in this room is I would like to believe that as great producers and creators, this is not new to you. Hopefully, you've always been really obsessed with your audience. Hopefully, you've always wanted to care about where they watched until and what made them want to talk to their family and other people from the community about, what makes them want to come back for season 2. So, that's not new. I think it's just the speed at which some of this comes back to you, and also the tools now available to do micro tests and learn are different. And the punts can be they can be more iterative rather than earlier. And as I said, this is that skill of being obsessed with your audience is actively rewarded by algorithms. So that's sort of nothing to be, I think, worried about. The algorithm's not here to be your enemy. If you sort of play it right, it's actually going to connect you with audiences you absolutely had no idea and can't really reach at the moment, which is great. So how to crack the algorithm without chasing clickbait. I like threes because people remember threes apparently. So went with this, but I think let's start with expectation. So have a really, really clear channel promise or publisher promise, really. It's really interesting. There's a lot of research that shows that attention spans aren't actually really going down. What is actually happening is the decision to invest your time in a video is being made faster than ever before. It's going back to the thing of there's an oversupply of content and video to never sort of outstrip demand. So the time to decide is faster than ever before. This decision paralysis. So help signal really clearly what the value of your channel or your repeatable sort of videos will be to an audience. And then just satisfy that, right? Fulfill that need. Take them on that journey of whatever that is that you want to offer them, whether it's sort of a long form thing that you want them to watch after a long day, or it's something that you want them to fit in, during their lunch hour, whatever that sort of journey is that you want to take them on, whether it's from a place of not knowing something to being much more knowledgeable if you're looking to be more informative, whether it's more about showing them there's a community of people like them, whatever it is, whatever that audience need is, satisfy it sort of really clearly. And ultimately, there's a way of doing this where you don't actually reward repeat viewership. So never forget to do that as well. So it is not about that one-off satisfaction. Sounds kind of weird actually saying it that way. But you want them to come back for more. And to illustrate very quickly, we did this for To Music a while ago where we created quite a few interesting music formats to decrease their sort of viewership range really, and also reconnect with Gen Z listeners, which was really interesting. And again, it was all designed with having them come back. We're going to start running out of time, so we're going to go through this very quickly. So what does all this mean for you? Yeah, start with the audience, not the idea. Slightly been touched before, but yeah, I'm not going to keep drawing on that. Design for the second video, right? This is all about that return visit. So almost start thinking about the reasons why people might want to come back to you every week. What is that repeatability? What is that sort of payoff that you can expect to give people every week? Make a promise and then keep it. This is, I think, a huge sort of reason why you might not want to be chasing trends for no reason, because you need to have a very, very clear channel promise, and people can quite quickly understand or know when that sort of relationship is broken between the creator and the audience. Patterns, not one-offs. Again, this is all about trying to think in formats and many mini hits rather than the one-off drop that may or may not actually land. And ultimately, this is not to say that everything has to be really boring. There's actually a lot of room for experimentation, but within the sort of format boundaries. You're here to refine. You're not here to completely chuck your entire channel promise away. And ultimately, if you chase the algorithm, you'll always be behind it. But if you understand your audience, it tends to follow, is ultimately the thing I'd like to leave you guys with. Thank you very much. No redacted stuff here. And if you want to do QR codes, you can find me on there. Thank you.